your financial background. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that if you take a black person and a white person on equal playing field, you go up in a poor neighborhood, drug infested, so on and so on, who has the better chances of making it out? And that's where white privilege plays a role. So I'm not saying like, oh, well, white privilege, you're going to get to do all this and all that. I'm not saying that. But if me and you are on an equal playing field, come from the same background, socioeconomics, then will we still have access to the same things?
You'll probably have a higher chance of making it out. Going to college and getting a big scholarship, you would have a better chance because of affirmative action.
So we're going to talk about exploring white privilege today. We're going to need 6 volunteers.
It's going to be fun.
I need 3 people who have a strong perspective about white privilege. Like, have a perspective. You got a critique on it. If someone asks you about it, you could be like, oh yeah, no, I can talk about white privilege. I got this. A white person who grew up in the middle or upper middle class white world. Now I need a poor white person. And then I need a wealthy black or brown person.
Bro, I would love to be in a class like this because, like, I would probably go on stage. I'm not wealthy or nothing, but I guess I'm, like, high and middle class. I don't know. So when you're talking about white privilege, this is going to be a very interesting discussion, bro. I'm excited to see what happens, bro. I'm not going to lie.
Here we go. So, bro, give us something about you. So you're like, you two are, you're just here. You can actually move your seats just away a little bit. You're on, bro. Tell us about yourself. White guy.
I'm a sophomore here. I'm from Bucks County, Pennsylvania.
What are you studying?
Finance.
Finance.
Okay,
oh, you want to
okay.
be in finance, yeah?
Yeah, that's
the
goal.
ticket to what? So what's your background? What do your parents do?
My mom is an office manager, and my dad is retired.
Yeah? And so you're here studying finance.
Yes.
You're in a frat?
Yes.
What, the EX frat?
That's what some call it, yeah.
What is it?
What is that?
Sigma Chi.
Sigma Chi? Oh, you guys aren't on probation or anything? I thought, it seems like half the frats are on probation.
Not right now, no.
All right. Probably give it another week. You probably will be. All right, so here's what I want. Monet, Dalton, Allaire. I want you to explain this guy his white privilege.
He was an engineer.
So, oh, yeah. Hang on. Did you get that? Oh, all right. Do you want to start?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to ask. So
hold it, Mike, really
did
tight.
both of your parents go to college?
No, neither of them did.
Neither of them went to college, and he became an engineer?
Yes.
How do you say how?
One of his best friends started a company, and he's good with math.
So was there like a connection, like a friend or something?
Yeah, they used to like race together. Cars.
So I don't really know what's going on in this video, but what it looks like to me is that they're having a debate on, I guess, the existence of white privilege, and I'm assuming the professor is eventually going to say whether or not he believes white privilege exists or doesn't. I will say now though, so far in this video I haven't got a hint of it, but we'll see what happens as the video progresses. Make sure y'all subscribe to the channel.
Go ahead. So your job is to explain his white privilege.
They need to explain it.
Know why he doesn't get. He doesn't get his. Dude, look at this guy. He's like a frat. What do you call it? Who are they? He's like just a frat dude. Come on, man.
All right, Sean.
What? All he thinks about is beer and beer. You know what I mean? I would say women, but whatever. But just beer. He hasn't even got to women yet. It's just beer. Bro, so you're gonna explain white privilege to this guy?
Yeah, all right. So
this guy. Have you ever? Do you look in the mirror and think about your white privilege, bro?
Not usually, no.
Okay. I mean, in other words, never. All right.
All right, so the way I look at it is it's probably a combination like two things, right? So the first thing is, you know, if you were to just like say, let's say like before you were born, right? It was like you're going to be either born white or black. and then you were randomly selected into like one white or black family, most people, if their goal was to be born into the best opportunity, you would choose white, because there's more white people in better opportunities than there are black people in good opportunities, and not only in this country but like in the whole world. So like all black people and all white people, right? And then another thing is, depending on which country you're in, like, you know, America, like, I don't know, like, I'm white, right? And I have some black friends that say being black never held them back about nothing. And then I have some black friends that say like their whole life is different because they have all these opportunities that they couldn't get to because they're black. So I don't know about that, but that's another perspective, which is that, you know, just like same thing kind of like with being like a man, right? Is like you don't know what you're given, right? Because like it could be anything. Like you go to like this is like a little example, but like go to a grocery store, right?
All right, hang on though. Before you get that example, go to
okay. So what he just said was, if you were born and you were allowed to choose which race you wanted to be, assuming that you're born in America, I'm assuming that's what he's talking about, or Western civilization, if you want the majority of your privilege, you would choose being white rather than being black because of the success that white people have had. What I'm going to say to this is that whole discussion or that whole argument doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. And the reason it doesn't make a lot of sense to me is because by you just saying that, you're implying that white people just naturally out the womb are just given major advantages over someone who's black just because they are white. Like, just off the strength of them being white, they have a way higher advantage than black people. But I disagree. And the reason I disagree, I'm not saying that white privilege in some areas doesn't exist. What I'm saying is that just because you are white doesn't automatically mean that you are 100% going to achieve more than someone who's black. It doesn't mean that. And by you saying, well, just because you're white, that's the reason why your parents were successful, or just because you're black, that's the reason that you weren't successful, that's not true. It negates any other choice that you as a human make. It just boils everything down to your God-given skin color. And I don't think that's the case in today's time. I really don't.
Come back to that.
Okay. To express or to tell you about your privilege, I think we should talk about your parents. The fact that both of them seem like they're financially stable, and your father became an engineer off the fact of having a friend that he raced cars with. That's amazing. That shows that if an African American was in that same situation, the likelihood of that would not be even.
That's not white privilege. That's not white privilege, bro. Like, she's saying just because both of his parents were financially affluent, then that kind of alludes to him having white privilege. But that doesn't make any sense, because that could happen in a black family too, an Asian family, or an Indian family. And, you know, when I watched this video, I was like, you know what? Let's really explore this topic, because I really want to know, like, I want to know deep down, what is it? Like, what makes people say, okay, that's definitely white privilege, or what makes people say, no, that isn't white privilege? I want to know. But this, having parents who are successful, come on, man.
Also, you're in a frat, so that means you have time to, you know, drink beer and hang out with your friends and do stuff like that. On the other hand, a lot of students that have to pay for school, go through school, X, Y, and Z don't have that luxury. So right there, you have the luxury of being in a frat, having parents that are able to provide for you.
I feel like it's not necessarily just your parents. You like you yourself, you're not the privilege. The privilege is in society, and that's just because like America was built on white privilege. So it's like so like you see it's enrooted. Like it's subconscious. So when an employer, like let's say your mom walks into like a job, you said she's office management, something like that. Yeah, so let's say when she walks in there, you know, she'd have the same tone, and then like someone of another look or aspects have the same tone, and the employer subconsciously is just gonna gravitate more towards her, maybe because the other person comes off aggressive.
So this is what's interesting about this to me. This kind of is talking about like critical race theory, talking about there are subconscious biases towards African Americans, in comparison to white people, and that the lighter your skin tone is, the less bias you have, and this leads to white privilege. This is critical race theory, basically. My debate for this would be in terms of finances, because when you talk about privilege, you're talking about who runs the infrastructure, who is the most affluent when it comes to resources in America. So what would that be? That's finances, that's CEOs. My question would be, why, if that's the case, why aren't white Americans the leading in America when it comes to how much money they have? Why is it not white Americans? Why is it Asian Americans and Indian Americans? If you say that this is the case, and that's a serious question. I'm not trying to denounce what she's saying, because I just want to know, like, if this exists, if there's like inherent biases that hold white people specifically to the highest standard, why aren't they the number one in America when it comes to finances on a mass scale? It's a real question. I'm not trying to, go on her, but that's a real question. Somebody let me know, please.
The same exact thing, and like he just said, if someone of like another race were to say something like what she just said, or something like what I just said in the same exact tone, it would be subconsciously interpreted another way. So that's why like the privilege comes into the way society like automatically views a certain groups. Like one group is automatically subconsciously viewed as aggressive, while the others seems like, oh, this is more suited for the workplace, different things like that. So it's not just like you and your family itself, it's America. And I feel like in order for us to fix like that part of America, which was made in like the 1800s and slavery and Jim Crow and all that, I feel like we have to acknowledge like that it's a thing, and that's like we have to circumvent it in that way.
I will say this, like, to help this young lady's argument, that I don't personally think that's a race thing. I do think some people have like inherent biases. I don't think it's like a race. Like a race has an inherent bias naturally towards another race. I do think like people sometimes have biases. Like, for example, this is a young black woman. Some people probably have a bias towards her that they think she's aggressive or something, which is not the case. That's like what you hear on social media stuff. But I'm not going to boil that down to a race having a bias towards another race or a group of people. I just think people naturally, unfortunately, have some biases. I hope y'all get what I'm saying. I don't think that's a race issue. I just think that's a human issue, is all I'm saying.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thanks, Mom. Dude, tell us about your white privilege here. They're laying it out to you. What do you have to say?
What I'm getting.
I can't wait till your frat brothers are watching this.
They still are right now. I don't. They're kind of making it seem that I was born into it, and that us as whites have a better opportunity because of the subconscious mind.
And that's critical race theory. Like I was saying earlier, bro, humans have natural biases. It's not necessarily a race thing. What do I mean by that? You can look at someone and be like, they look aggressive, or they seem like they're aggressive. That when you say something like that, it's not because of someone's skin color. It's because of like the way they walk or the way they mean mugging you. That's just that's how humans evolve. That's just what it is. But nothing they said alluded to him having a natural born white privilege. That's what I want to know. Like where. I want to know where it is. I really do. Like, let's get to it. Let's go.
No, just you. Just like
me?
You have a better opportunity.
Yeah, just me. Sure.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Yeah. No.
Or you don't see it?
Maybe I don't. Yeah, sure. I don't see it. Let's go with that.
All right. So, okay, that's cool. Got it. So this is, mind you, this is what we're dealing with, right? It's like we got to find a way to say it. We're going to come back to you for a second, bro. But in the meantime, we're going to come back to you real fast, given what you said. It's built into society. So, you did nice, dude. What's your story? You're white, right?
Yeah. So my parents are divorced, and when they got divorced, my mom wasn't working. So it's kind of just been like slowly working up to where we are now. But even then, I would consider us pretty poor. Like, we've never owned a house. We've been running pretty much my entire life. My dad was remarried, and his family like makes more money than us. But with me and my sister primarily living with my mom, I would consider us pretty poor. But
Okay, so how do you incorporate her into it? Bro, you can join in on this. How do you incorporate that? Because you said it's built into society.
Yeah, it
She
is
must be
built
living in a
society,
different society.
But there's anomalies,
What?
like, at the same time. Like, I feel like white privilege and saying, oh, every single white person is, like, privileged. But at the same time, like, factually speaking, you know, your family, not you specifically, but people in general, their families are more likely to have generational wealth just because of simply the way, like, America is built. Like, you're built to more likely have privilege in society.
What?
Bro, do you want to respond to her? Like, how would you incorporate her?
Well, I was also grew up kind of poor.
Where'd you grow up, bro?
Well, I grew up in Lothian. It's like a small town, kind of like pretty far east from here.
Okay.
It's like pretty depressed town.
So how?
And
Okay.
then-
What? Depressed?
Yeah, there's like a lot of like.
Do you-
It's actually mostly white, but I mean, there's a lot of people doing drugs. This is like not a good place to grow up, and it was really bad environment. So like that wasn't white privilege. You know what I mean? So like, but I don't really think that has anything to do with white privilege, because like there's black people that are very rich and very famous, and there's white people that are very poor. It doesn't necessarily mean that white privilege doesn't exist.
So this doesn't negate white privilege. Well, how would you? How
No,
do,
it's just an outlier.
Yep, I got you. How do you incorporate her story into it?
So I think that white privilege talks about how you can access agency, like what can you do. So like say hypothetically you're saying that you grew up poor, however you do attend a PWI, and I feel like that in itself gives you a privilege versus somebody who, let's say that was person of color in your situation.
What?
Mom wasn't working, X, Y, and Z. Would they still have the opportunity to attend Penn State? So I'm not necessarily saying, I'm not invalidating anybody's experiences because I feel like it's all valid. But what I'm saying is that white privilege sometimes gives you the freedom to access better opportunities, and it's since solely off because you are white.
Okay, so you caught that, right? You said that really well. Like, you know what I mean?
Thank you.
No.
No, bro. Nah. No. No. That's not true. That's not true. She said you have the access to go to a PWI. For one, HBCUs exist. If y'all don't know what an HBCU is, this is an historically black college or university where the majority of students are black. Those exist. And for two, because it's a PWI, something called affirmative action allows other races to have a fair chance to get in. I don't know the exact definition, but it allows for a fair chance to get in. Something that just went to the Supreme Court said that affirmative action unfairly helps minorities. Like, it's made it so that you would need around 450 points higher if you were an Asian to get into a school such as Harvard or Columbia rather than if you were a black person. So because of these things, you statistically had a higher chance of getting into a school like Penn State than her because you're black. So for you to say, well, although your family did grow up in poverty and although you aren't rich, you still have it better than me because you're able to go to Penn State, which is a PWI. But she probably, like statistically speaking, she probably had a harder time getting into Penn State than you did. If y'all had everything else was equal, y'all grew up in the same circumstances, you would have an easier time getting into a school such as Penn State or a school such as Harvard or Columbia or one of these higher ranking schools. Just because the minority of the students in these schools are black and affirmative action does exist. So that's just what it is. Another thing is when you said that a white family had a higher chance of being financially affluent or the majority have generational wealth. First of all, the majority of people in America do not have generational wealth. The average white household, like a man and a woman together, is around 70,000. Cut that in two, the average white income is around 50,000. So, majority of people, regardless of skin color, white, black, do not make above $70,000 in America. And that's the 2021 census. Majority of people do not have generational wealth, let alone even make six figures. And she just told you she obviously didn't grow up in those circumstances. So, I'm all for a good debate, but you got to be, a little fair in these discussions, man. That's just not true.
You laid that. That's the point that you're going to lay out. It's like it gives you a certain amount of privileges just being white. However, here's the however. Man, you are walking on a razor's edge to say that like her being white somehow this is in this some kind of microwave or whatever, like it's a razor's edge.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not saying that. But let's say, like, even as far as like funding, and I'm not saying you in particular, but I'm saying if it comes down, if you present your story and somebody else presents their story, who would get scholarships? Who would get funding? And I'm not saying I don't know.
You would get funding. You would actually get more funding than her if, like, y'all had the same background and you were both trying to go to this school, which you said is a PWI, UPenn, or Penn State, or whichever one you name. They're both PWIs. You would actually get more funding than her. Like, statistically speaking, I'm not even trying to like bully her, but it's just what it is. Like, let's keep it a buck.
Your financial background, I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is that if you take a black person and a white person on equal playing fields, you go up in a poor neighborhood, drug infested, so on and so on, who has the better chances of making it out? And that's where white privilege plays a role. So I'm not saying like, oh, well, white privilege, you're going to get to do all this and all that. I'm not saying that. But if me and you are on an equal playing field, come from the same background, socioeconomics, then will we still have access to the same things?
You would probably have a higher chance. Bro, this is not good. You would probably have a higher chance. You would probably have a higher chance of making it out. If you were both in, what she's saying, drug-infested neighborhoods, extreme poverty, and you're in the, let me rephrase this, and the goal was to go to college and get a big scholarship. That's what I'm assuming making it out implies. Going to college and getting a big scholarship and whatever. You would have a better chance because of affirmative action. If you were growing up in the same circumstances as her, and you and her both had the same exact grades, because of your skin color, and you want to go to school like Penn State or whatever, because the least amount of students there are black or something. Let's say they have a 10% black population, but they have a 60% white population or whatever. Because just off the strength of that, and you had those circumstances and she had the same circumstances, you will be better. Plus, there are scholarships that are literally just for minorities. So yes, you would actually have the better chance. This doesn't really help the argument of white privilege. But I'm just being 100, y'all. I'm just letting y'all know the truth.
Okay, hang on. Will we still have access to the same things, right?
Right.
So what do you think about that? What do you think about your white privilege?
I definitely do think that even though I am on, I guess, the lower class level, I still think that white privilege exists. Like, I agree with your statement, and it's like, I don't want to say it's not something that we can help, but it's just how people look at things today. And,
Wait, can you give me an example, though? Because, hang on, that's you know what she just, can I just say, hey, everyone, can I just say this really fast? That's a script. That's one of the scripts that your generation has learned. It's like, yeah, I know I have this isn't bad. Like, you're good. Like, you're a good white person, right? Yeah. You learn the script. I know I have a certain amount of privilege. Man, you could be living on the streets, eating rats for dinner, eating whatever, and you could still be like, oh no, but I got the script, but I still have privilege because I'm white. It's like, hang on a sec. To go back, give me one way in which you have white privilege. Your whiteness gives you privilege.
I mean, I haven't had a situation, at least in my life yet, where that has come into play, where I've been against someone who's not white, and it was like I needed a different opportunity, but like...
This is sad, bro. The reason I'm saying it's sad is because you have a young woman here who worked extremely hard to get to this college, grew up in pure poverty, her family couldn't afford housing at all. And here she's sitting on the stage saying, although I came through all these trials and tribulations, I still have this privilege. And although I haven't had this privilege affected in my life, it's still there. The reason I say it's sad is because it'd be a different story if, you know, she grew up and she did experience having a white privilege. And she did, you know, exercise it daily or seen it happen in her life or people that she loved life. However, that's not the case at all. She's never used it. She's never had it. And she grew up in extreme poverty and worked extremely hard to get to where she is. However, she's not attributing her success and, you know, her circumstances to how hard she worked. She's attributing it to her privilege that she's never in her mind seen or used. That's why I think it's kind of sad, man. I'm not going to sit here and say it doesn't exist. I'm sitting here saying that is kind of a script, you know? Like, you have to experience it or, you know, at least see it happen for you to say it exists, right? Or is it just a natural born belief that it exists? Is it like just what it is? I don't know, man. I don't know.
Like, for example, like job opportunities, I'm sure that more in the future would probably be presented to someone who's white rather than someone who's of color. I don't know, like we were talking about financial aid and stuff, like scholarships and stuff, being able to go to Penn State. I don't know. I mean, I really haven't been put into a position yet in my life where that has happened.
But can I say to you all and to everybody else, as far as I know, Penn State has no scholarships dedicated for poor white people. I don't think there's a single one out there.
Yeah, right
As
now,
I already said that.
More financial aid this semester, so I have like a $2,000 bill that I gotta figure out how to pay in like the next 2 weeks, which sucks. But yeah, I mean.
Okay.
I already just said that.
Okay, so hang on real fast. We're gonna come back. How long would it take you to pay her $2,000 bill? She's Puerto Rican.
Yeah, I wouldn't have to worry about that. But so in my opinion, like white privilege is a real thing, and I really do think white people have an advantage over minorities. However, there also is a big divide between the rich and poor, and I think that's a whole separate issue.
Okay, go ahead.
And yeah, so I feel like you're less privileged than me, because well, like I don't have money, but my parents have money, and it's nice, so I don't have to worry about certain things that you have to. Like how much money? I don't want specifics, but like a lot of money. Your parents are really rich. I mean,
they're wealthy.
Like, yeah.
Like you could call them right now and say, I need $2,000 because I got to give it to my classmate.
Well, no, they make me work for things.
No, I got you. But you could, if you needed $2,000, you could get it.
Yeah.
Okay, dude. Just trying to hook you up, my friend. All right.
This is sad, bro. This is sad. This young woman, Puerto Rican, said, you know what? White privilege exists. But just because you have a $2,000 bill, I would literally never have to worry about an issue like that, ever. I wouldn't. That issue does not cross her mind. And in the same breath, she's saying, or at least implying, that the young Caucasian woman has more privilege than her. This is why, like, when I watch videos like this, I'm not going to sit here and be like, you know, this is the... No, I'm going straight off the video. A lot of what they said is just wrong. A lot of what they said is just not true. There are no scholarships dedicated for poor white people at a school like Penn State. And I already just told y'all that. They aren't. But there is scholarships dedicated to minorities. It is. Like, this is not something I'm just telling y'all to be biased. I'm telling y'all I'm telling y'all the truth. You have a minority students on the stage who are way more fluent than her. You have a white person on the stage who's way more fluent than her. This kind of implies in itself that it's not really a race thing. It's more of a situational thing, circumstantial thing, economic thing. Anyways, man, I'm going to finish this video right here. Let me know if you have any suggestions for me. It's LFR Jojo, and I'll see you on the next one.